to the broadcast. More information's come out about the green thumb industry worker death. And definitely discuss that tonight, as well as Trulieve not able to keep CFOs. It seems like they're running through CFOs over the last couple of months. Very interesting news there. Tonight, I'm trying to open it up. I don't know if the phone lines are going to work. I just try to set everything up again. We've been going through our system. It wasn't. It was giving my girlfriend some issues for her podcast. We got that kind of figured out and just redid everything on the system. I hope the phone line works tonight. We're going to try to take calls. Last show it didn't work out, but we'll see what happens this time. Let's put the phone line up just in case. But we're also I spread some links around on the StreamYard link too, to try to get some folks to call in tonight. We will see if they call in. You know what? Oh, I took the number off. Man, that's dumb. I don't know why I did that. Let me see if I can get the number up another way. Here we go. This is the number right here. We'll put it up here. 978-560-3155. Let me write that down too, so I can get that program in the ticker for later. You can see I'm doing multiple things like I always do last minute, Charlie here, but very busy guy. Can't always get to what we want to get to, unfortunately, but we do the best we can. But you do have a phone number there, 978-560-3155. We will be using that phone number tonight if people want to call. I want to thank everyone who's been listening, supporting us, subscribing to us over the last months. And again, I want to talk about the worker death. Let's try to bring that up actually right now. I'm going to bring up just kind of the latest on it. It's been a couple different stories. One was from Weed Week. They did another follow-up. Dead Green Thumb Industries worker was repeatedly hospitalized, which we knew already. We were talking about that. But we also found out her name, too. Her name is Julie Divini. She was indeed 60 years old. She died on the Friday morning that we broke the story at the multi-state operator Green Thumb Industries in Rock Island. This is a grow and manufacture of a facility in the western Illinois part, in the western part of Illinois. She had breathing issues, COPD, and so funny that Rosie Mateo, who we've mentioned on the show in the past, came out with some statements which were just ridiculous about how the workers are their biggest concern and their family, but then they went on to just basically blame the whole thing on the worker and the unions. It was the union's fault, which I found pretty wild. We're going to put up another one. Actually, this is we've given them a bunch of crap recently. This website, the Green Market Report, it seems like they're starting to pick up on some of the stories, some of the coverage. So we're gonna put that up too on the screen here. Stop that screen share and let's add Green Market Report if we can. Here we go. There were a lot of stories that came out. It's really interesting to see too the amount of pushback that Green Thumb Industries is getting right now on social media. People have seen this song and dance quite a few times now, and you can't just run the Trulieve playbook on these deaths. This is from Green Thumb Industries worker dies at Illinois facility. This is from the Green Market Report. John Schroyer writes, an employee of Green Thumb Industries died recently while on the job at a grow operation in Rock Island, Illinois, raising additional questions about worker safety in the cannabis industry following another death last year in Massachusetts. So right there in the headline, you can see worker safety is at the top, even though the first thing that they want to say, Green Thumb Industries and their Rosie Mateo, their PR firm, is that it was not work related. It wasn't not work related. Just that it was just a random thing that happened at work. Well, there's quotes here from an employee who said that he has coughing fits all the time at GTI. We've heard that from other employees. We've got quotes from them, former Teamster. They were trying to start a union over there. They've had coughing fits. There's been a number of people we've been talking to over the weeks about this GTI Rock Island facility. And there are definitely issues for some workers with breathing over there, no matter what this company wants to say. So we're talking about that tonight, and we're taking your phone calls. We're hopefully going to take some calls from some folks that are checking in tonight. I got one right here. I'm going to bring him up. Chris is here. I believe he's with Normal in Florida. I know he's a Democrat. Let's bring him up and see what he's got to say about some of these stories tonight. What's up, Chris? Am I saying your last name right, Cano? Oh, you're on mute. Let's try to unmute you.
There we go.
There you go.
Thanks for having me on, Mike. I appreciate it. Yeah, I am with Normal. I serve on our national board, and I also am executive director of our Suncoast chapter down in Florida, which stretches from the Gulf Coast to the Space Coast.
Excellent. And tonight, we're talking quite a bit about what's been going on in the cannabis industry. I think you've seen some of it down there in Florida. What do you think about this latest death at Green Thumb Industries and the company's response, kind of the PR firm response and the Ben Kovlar, the CEO response? Have you seen any of that? What do you think about it?
Well, I would say this much. This just goes to show, again, another example of the cannabis industry putting profits before people. There is a movement in the industry among many workers to unionize for these very reasons, for personal safety, for not being treated with respect, for not being paid, the amount of labor that they're putting in. Meanwhile, you see major CEOs raking, millions of dollars in, some of them even, as we've seen, possibly defrauding their investors in cases. I mean, Bo Wrigley's being sued by Parallel, which is the parent company of Soterra, which is the Florida name for what they're operating under. And you mentioned earlier, Trulieve. I mean, it's a shame what we see in these large multi-state operators and how they really are just pyramid schemes for the people at the top, while the people who are in the trenches working hard. I mean, in many cases in Florida, we've heard reports of folks having to work in 110 degree hoop houses to grow that subpar corporate booth that they're selling through these multi-state operating dispensaries.
Yeah, we hear a lot of horrible situations going on in this industry. I'm glad you brought up the litigation too, because so much going on in that space in terms of fraud and people suing each other. Green Thumb Industries is also involved in a lawsuit. Cookies Burner is under. I can't keep up. He's got more lawsuits, I think, than Trump does at this point. The guys from Cookies, who their company seems bankrupt. We got a phone call. Do you want to take this phone call? Let's take this phone call because this could be a good one if we can get it on the system. I think we got it actually. Hold on. This is going to be a good call, actually. I know who it is if we can get her on the line. Hi, are you there, caller? Can you hear us? Damn it, it's not working again. That's strange. We'll try that again. I'm going to try her again by cell phone. Let me try one more time. Something's not going right with this Bluetooth lately. I don't even want to tell people who that is because, well, actually, let's see, because they'll be upset if we can't take the call.
There, Mike?
Yeah, you're there. This is Laura, Lorna's mom.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
You're live on the show with us.
I'm very upset over all this. I've been screaming for a year and a half for this not to happen to somebody else. And now it has. And I'm beside myself.
Yeah, it's shocking, isn't it? That she had COPD. She had been taken out in the ambulance, and they kept her on the same position. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, right. So OSHA's not doing nothing. And they're supposed to protect workers. They're not doing nothing. So I'm going after OSHA. I'm going after them, and I'm going after the CCC too.
And what have you heard?
This should have stopped at Lorna's death, and that's what I was trying to make happen. And they didn't do it.
When you heard, were you shocked? Were you shocked by it?
Yeah. I bawled. I sat here and cried. My daughter died in vain now. they didn't do what they were supposed to do from the time that this happened to Lorna.
Horrible.
And I blame OSHA.
If anyone
I
from
don't know.
OSHA or the regulators are listening, what's your comment to them? Because this is the second time I'm hearing that there's probably been
They're
other
a
deaths
farce.
too that have been covered
They're
up.
nothing but a farce. They're a farce. They don't do what they're supposed to do. They're nothing but a farce. It's all smoke and mirrors. They get paid off. You can't tell me that OSHA doesn't get paid off. And I know Trulieve paid OSHA off. And I'm going after the government. I'm going after the government. They didn't protect my daughter, and now they didn't protect this other person. It's not right. It's just not right. There's no protection, even though they say there is.
I know. I know that Danny and certain advocates in Massachusetts are trying to work on this. They have a bill. They've got people sponsoring, but it's like so late.
Yeah.
It's so late. It's not their fault, obviously.
Right.
But
it's so late. And I've been screaming since Lorna was on life support that this can't happen to somebody else. I even told the one from OSHA, Mary Tart, whatever the hell her name is. This can't happen to somebody else. And now they allowed it to happen to somebody else.
I know.
So, I don't know. I'll bring it to the Supreme Court if I have to. I don't know, but this has got to stop. This has got to stop. These people have got to listen. People are dying. These people's lives mattered. They mattered to people. My daughter was my only child. And they still didn't listen. I don't understand this world anymore. I don't know how OSHA allows this to happen. They're supposed to go in and crack down on these companies when they're not doing what they're supposed to do. Well, this company's not doing what they're supposed to do, and OSHA's just sitting there doing nothing. And you can say that the government, it's illegal in the government, still in the government, whatever. The government still controls this. So I may just be suing the government.
Thank you for calling, Laura.
And I hope this woman's family, I would like to get together with them. Because it's got to stop. There can't be a third one now. This has got to stop. And the government's allowing it to happen because OSHA's the government.
Yeah, it's really, I gotta say, like, when I heard this, I got depressed. I mean, this must have really affected you when you heard this news.
Yes. When I heard that another one died in Illinois, I sat here and broke down and cried. I was devastated. Because with Lorna's death, this is what I was trying to stop. And nobody's listening. There's no protection for these workers. They want to grow this weed. They want to have this industry, but they don't want to protect anybody in it. They just want the money. Well, Kim Rivers, she better watch out because I'm coming after her. I am coming after her.
Thank you for calling, Laura.
This is bullcrap, man. This cannot happen no more.
Thank you so much for calling in tonight. What's your final words for people who are listening at home tonight?
This has just got to stop. It's got to stop. People can't die. I love my daughter to death. She was my world, my whole world. And it was they took my whole world. So this has got to stop because this is what's happening to people out here now. People's worlds are being destroyed because of this industry.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and watch the rest of it, hon.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good
Bye,
night.
hon.
I know,
You too.
man. Hard. She's saying the same stuff that she said months ago, and it's like she's right. Like nothing's changed. What do you say to that, Chris?
What really burns my bridges is, in June, originally, OSHA had, and this is, June of last year, Trulieve was fined a total of $35,000 for 3 violations of the hazard communication standards. Then they reach a settlement with OSHA. 2 of those citations get dropped as part of this settlement, and Trulieve only has to pay $14,502. $14,000 is all Lorna's life was worth to this company. And I understand. Let me say, I can't understand, but I validate her mother's anger completely, that there was not just a failure by her own employer to take proper precautions to protect her, but the fact that the government agency meant to regulate and come in and fix these things obviously isn't, up to the standards that it needs to be. And I really hate to point to this fact, but it feels as though the federal government, OSHA, doesn't take the cannabis industry as serious as it should, because the cannabis industry in itself still remains a gray market. As long as the federal government doesn't take action on decriminalizing cannabis or removing it as a Schedule I drug, I mean, its agencies are going to still continue to have these lax approaches and not treat it like every other agency. And it's not just the federal government at fault. Where was the Illinois Department of Labor in all this? If the state of Illinois has opened up an adult use market, no different than the state of Massachusetts has, why are the Department of Labor not taking a bigger role where the federal government obviously has a power vacuum at, where it's failing our people?
And I don't even buy that excuse about the federal government anymore, because OSHA has made rulings, like they fined Trulieve, and what's even worse too about the settlement that you talked about is that part of that settlement was they were supposed to have a NIOSH study at that Trulieve Holyoke site. Now that's not happening because they're pulling out of Massachusetts. So, like, Trulieve even got out of half the settlement, in my opinion. The best part of it, was to find out, what the issues are on these cultivation sites, and they get out of that. And it's like the federal government, OSHA, this is how they operate outside of cannabis.
Yeah.
Like in every industry, I think it's a wake up call for like a lot of us, like myself included, how weak OSHA is, not just in cannabis, in every industry. We're just noticing it now because we're so focused on cannabis, and it's such an, up and coming industry. A lot of us are involved in it, and it's rampant in cannabis. Like cannabis, there is a lot of risk, and there's no safety precautions being set up, not being thought of. We have some other folks too that I want to bring in on this conversation who are in the green room. Let's try to bring them up one at a time. I've got, looks like Kate is here. I think she's a former employee. We also have Danny Carson, and we have Leslie. So I'm going to try to bring them up. Let's bring up Kate. Let's see if we can bring her up on the stream right now. Kate, are you there? Are you listening to what we're discussing right now? Hello, Kate. Sounds like you have the video on in the background,
but the mic is muted.
Yeah, her mic is muted, but somehow she has it. Well, I'm gonna remove her for a second. Maybe we'll get that figured out. you you call it. I don't know. How does that happen? Or maybe she has it on her. I don't know. That is weird. I don't get how these things happen. Their mic is muted, but the sound is coming through from our show. Let's try Danny Carson. He's here. Danny, how you doing?
Hey, good, Mike. How are you?
Great. What I'm sure you've got a lot of comments. You heard
Yeah,
Lorna's mom call in, I think.
yeah, absolutely. I'm glad she called in. This is absolutely it's a tragedy once again. And it's all about the accountability and the lack thereof, and by the people who license these companies. Um, it's heartbreaking to see that this has happened again, and I hope that this really sparks something in workers to really organize and unionize and hold these companies accountable, because it's going to take them pushing them to do this, I believe, and using their voices and really coming forward and complaining about the things
Well, looks like we just lost Danny there. Yeah, I think everyone's having internet problems lately. I've been noticing that. Danny always has tough internet, and it's infecting me now. Now we're getting bad internet too. I don't know. Let's try. It looks like she's not even connected. Leslie, are you there too? Yeah, I think Leslie is there. Let's bring up
I am
Leslie right
here.
now.
Hi.
Leslie, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Excellent. Tell everyone who you are and make your comments.
I am Leslie Engelking. I'm the founder of Focus, which stands for Foundation of Cannabis Unified Standards. And we are a 501c3 nonprofit cannabis health and safety organization. I apologize for how I look. It's 4 p.m. in Arizona and I just came in from the pool. So it's very hot here. But yeah, I've been worried about this type of situation in these facilities since 2011 when I opened the first chain of vertically integrated medical cannabis licenses in Phoenix and saw this stuff happening then. I was there about 3 years and left to start Focus as a nonprofit to try and help deal with the situation and prevent these tragic deaths and so many people getting sick and all of the things. Sorry, dogs. Unfortunately, the industry hasn't been, and I don't mean the workers, I mean the government, the state agencies, the operators, the licensees haven't been ready to do this. So for over a decade, we've had standards out that address worker health and safety. We've given them to states, we've given them to operators, and nobody really cared until now. So unfortunately, this has all come to this place, but I'm always, thrilled to be here and so grateful to Mike for his voice, because I really truly believe the way the situation is in the industry today, with so many big companies with money that are controlling sort of the media and that if all of us that actually care about this stuff don't band together and start talking about it, nothing's going to change. I was at the Cannabis Regulators Conference a month ago, which is the CANRA, it's every regulator from the state markets, or most of them. I think there's 40 or something now, and there wasn't a single session on worker health and safety, yet they invited me to sit in the audience for 2 days and participate in all this. So there's a reason this stuff is happening. And until we start putting some attention and some noise around it, I don't think it's going to change, because it certainly hasn't in my world in 10 years.
Let me ask Leslie, Danny, and Chris, everyone who's here, and maybe we can get the other Kate back on too. But I want to ask you all, like, what do you think about the PR response from Green Thumb Industries on this? They basically said the worker had pre-existing conditions and it wasn't work related, and they wished, they're worried about their workers and they're like family, all this other crap.
Oh,
what do you think about their response?
Well, that's a red flag there. I work as a union organizer when I'm not trying to reform marijuana laws. And I can tell you that if you hear an employer say we are family, it is a clear red flag that they are absolutely the opposite. But more than that, what it seems to be that they're doing with this public relations response is building their defense in court ahead of time by trying to point to these things. They're basically laying out what they're going to do when this case goes to litigation, is that they're going to point to pre-existing conditions. They're going to blame everybody, especially the worker, rather than their failure to actually protect them.
So if I can chime in, I will just say I was provided access to the police report and the fire report from the incident at GTI, and I was able to review those before doing some comments for another article. And from what I understand, and again, this is what I understand, and I think a lot more will come out, but just for those that aren't clear, the way the situation went down, she went into work that morning. Apparently GTI does some sort of 10-minute stretching for their whole team before they get started. It's not in production area, it's in sort of a break room or whatever. And it was during that stretching exercise that this happened. But it was very clear from the reports, and I think we've seen some good reporting on this from some different people, that she had these problems before. She has COPD, but there had been emergency medical services called to this facility specifically for her a number of times beforehand. So their response is, I agree with everything you said. The reality is they are trying to play their defense in the media, which is a business thing to do. The problem is there's all this documentation about all this stuff happening for so long. And it's not just with the lady who died. There's all these other workers that have had, I think, if I remember correctly, and please don't quote me on this, but it's something like 18 different EMS visits or 11 different EMS visits in 18 months. I mean, if you have two, you would think the state would know and be on the alert and looking into things, right? So the fact that they've had 11 and nothing was going on is concerning. And I think from my perspective, these employers are liable and it's problematic, but where is our government? These states, I get that the feds aren't involved, but why aren't these states taking responsibility for making these safe places to work like every other place that you would work? I mean, who wants to send their kid to work somewhere where they might not come home? That's just a crazy, crazy idea. And if we're not making it about public health, nobody's going to show up about work, right? I mean, I wouldn't.
So true. And the EMS visits, and the fact that OSHA already had an open investigation. The same thing with Lorna McMurray, like both of those things, that they had open OSHA investigations before they died, and that these women had collapsed at work and were taken out by ambulance previously before they died, and that there were so many ambulance rides from these places.
There's
And
a
that's what
lot
we
of
hear.
red flags that were ignored, right? Like,
It's unbelievable. We also have Kate. I think Kate is here. I don't know if she can turn on her mic if she's watching right now.
Hi, can you hear
Hi,
me?
Kate. Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Tell us about yourself and what you think about all this.
For sure. Thanks for inviting me and having me on. I am a former GTI employee. So this story caught my interest. Unfortunately, I also left GTI because I didn't feel safe working there. Different situation. I was working in the dispensary side, but our dispensary was robbed. I was there completely by myself, no security on site, no one there to protect me. Had complained several months before that we didn't have adequate lighting in our parking lot. And I also had a coworker that had physically assaulted me several months before and had been threatening me. The man that broke in gained access with another coworker's badge, who just happened to be my assailant's lifelong best friend and roommate. So the circumstances of the robbery are suspect, to say the least. Man tried to rape me in the bathroom. I was able to thankfully fight him and get away, but obviously very traumatic. I was minor physical injuries, but I still have pretty severe PTSD from it. I'm actually in the process now of trying to press legal charges against GTI because they essentially made me keep working in that dispensary for over a year after that happened. I was afraid to go in the bathroom. I spent a month and a half that I had to go off site to even use the bathroom at my job. After that, I kind of had to get over that and learn to go to the bathroom there. But for a year, I kept asking them to transfer me to another location because I still had to work with the people that I believe were behind the robbery. And after a year, HR basically kind of tried to gaslight me, told me the guy had never tried to sexually assault me. They only had like a record of him like beating me up or something. Pretty much just lost all confidence in HR and ultimately had to leave. So that's kind of where I come from. Before I worked at GTI, I actually worked at Grassroots for a little bit. And I had a coworker that passed away there with similar breathing issues that was 2019. I don't have proof, but I think that's been going on in the industry for a long time. And certainly GTI doesn't have a history of protecting me when I was their employee. So just kind of my 2 cents I wanted to throw in there. Sorry, that's a little related but unrelated, but just kind of felt like I needed to speak up about both of those things because I don't think that employee safety is being prioritized at any of these MSOs right now.
Karen, that was awesome. Thank you so much. Because like these are the two issues, like the three issues that we always hear about the workplace, and it's all workplace safety, but it's, the breathing issues that we talk a lot about, the people who have died from the breathing issues, but it's also sexual assaults and robberies and violence. Like this is, and stalking. Like we're hearing from a lot of women in the industry and how management doesn't handle it and makes it worse and punishes people like yourself who've gone through that. That's just horrible. I'm glad that you're speaking out. I mean, when this person, this other person that you had mentioned was a woman too that had passed away at the other dispensary.
Yes, this was actually when I worked at Grassroots production facility pre Curaleaf buying them in like 2019. Her name was Kate. She was let go from the company, and shortly after she left the company, she was on oxygen. At the time, she tested really high for carbon monoxide. So I'm not sure if it was that or if it was the dust or there's some relation, but kind of the same thing. They just said, she had a history of CPOD. She was a smoker. She was only in like her 50s. She really wasn't that old, but they kind of just tried to play the whole natural cause card. And at the time, me and, some coworkers tried to speak out, but they were pretty effective in silencing us, unfortunately.
Sad. And so many of the victims are women. Just like, how could you do that to your either daughter, your mother, your grandmother? Like this is what we're hearing over and over again. I really thank you for calling in. I'm sure some of our other panelists, guests want to say hi to you or speak on this. Anyone want to speak up? Raise your hand right now. Chris or Leslie, I see you there.
I would be happy to chat for a sec. I would thank you for coming forward and for having the courage to say that. It's beyond important that happens. I think that, at least in my opinion, and I'm happy to collect any type of feedback on this, that there really hasn't been a significant place, or a safe place at least, to report these kind of things, right? I think we heard from Kate. Charlie, sorry, my dogs are going crazy. We heard from Kate that like she reported it, nothing happened. This is the common theme. We get at Focus a lot of folks just talking to us about this, coming to us for information. That's why we're here, is to help people. And so it seems very common that no matter where we're reporting these things, nothing really takes place from it. I think one other just sort of anecdotal comment that I'll make is, I'm in Arizona right now visiting family and watching dogs and stuff, but I visited with my brother-in-law yesterday. And when we opened the dispensary chain, and we had grows and manufacturing labs and everything here in Arizona back in 2010, we had a construction guy that was kind of a flake and left the project, midway, which always happens, whatever. My brother-in-law is a construction management guy. And so they hired him to come in and finish it up. And I was just talking to them yesterday, just not about anything, but we were talking about him working there. And he goes, do you remember how sick I got from all the coughing and where I really couldn't breathe and I had to stop going in, and I would just show up and be the foreman outside the facility because I couldn't deal with all that stuff. And I honestly didn't remember it. And he's fine, thank goodness, right? But it really struck me as poignant that like this is truly happening. It's happening everywhere. And I do think that we have a problem with these big companies that don't respect people and don't clean their facilities and don't provide employees protection. But I do think that there are also risks in this space. Not cannabis is safe, we all know that. It's growing cannabis at scale, right, that becomes dangerous because we've introduced a human element into every aspect of it, and with that comes disease and mistakes and all the things that can get there. And I really think that it's time for this industry to do some studies on this stuff, and not one at a facility after a poor young lady dies, right? We need to be doing them proactively to really help this, because how can we keep going if we're killing people? We can't. And we can't kill people. I mean, this is just the fact that there's been another one that Kate mentioned and nobody knows about that. I mean, how many more are there that didn't, it was too early days in the industry and nobody really looked into it?
I think there's a lot. And I think there's
do
other
too.
people.
That's my gut feeling.
I think there are other people right now who are sick, or who, like, I know I've heard from people that haven't gone public yet.
Mm-hmm.
A few people actually that have been majorly sick and have stopped working at dispensaries, and they're looking at legal action, so and sometimes maybe not even legal action. They're traumatized, and they just like had a near death experience too. Like, this is what a lot of people have gone through.
Exactly. And it's not right. Like, that's just, it can't keep happening.
Thank you so much for spending time with us tonight, Leslie. Any final thoughts? I know you said you're a little busy, I think.
Yeah, I did want to just mention, I'm hoping to have it out Wednesday, but we'll see if it goes out this week or next week. But Focus is launching a new division called CARE. I'm sort of one-upping my press release and all the excitement, but I feel like these are the folks that need to hear about this, so I'd rather at least mention it. So CARE stands for Cannabis Adverse Risk Events, and we're basically going to open a reporting line, completely anonymous, confidential. We'll be posting and publishing monthly statistics as well as quarterly in-depth reports. I don't have all this information in front of me to share with you today, but I think that I guess what I want to say is that we have to keep talking like this. If it's Sunday afternoon and a few people on the line or hundreds of thousands, it really is going to take all of us caring about people before profits that is going to change this. And that takes a lot of discussion and collaboration. So I'm just grateful for all of you being here and caring about this issue.
Thank you. And I heard you were on the last Mascosh meeting. Were you on that?
Yeah, I was. I'm interested to see what kind of work they're producing and see how we can help. I think that's a really good effort.
Yeah, I feel like in Massachusetts, it's going to take a while, but there's a good group of people who are working on this. So I do have hope. I know this is a tough show for everyone. I want to thank you again, Leslie, so much for everything that you do and calling in.
Mike, I gotta say, it really struck me about what can we do? What do we do? What does one person do? And it's just a matter of reaching out and exercising your power and your voice and your networks. I just shot off an email to Dr. Ethan Nadelman, who is on the board of directors for GTI, and I told him, after hearing these stories from these workers, I need to talk with him, and he needs to hear this from these workers. There is no way their board of directors can move forward without making sure the company's taking the proper precautions to get these workers PPE, to make sure that everything's in compliance. As the one lady talked about, the fact that you can't even feel comfortable on the retail side, that she was physically assaulted and then gaslit, as the company did what they did to whatever, mitigate the circumstances or not address it in as serious manner as it needs to be. But no one should have to worry about getting robbed and raped at their job, number one. Number two, people shouldn't be dying just from packing pre-rolls, regardless of what premeditated or a pre-existing health condition somebody has. Workers should have the proper PPE in this sector, and it seems to me like that isn't happening.
Thank you so much, Chris. You're so right on the mark on all of that. It's just like crazy that we're dealing with this. I didn't realize that Ethel Nadelman, he was the drug policy alliance guy.
Yeah, the
He's
executive
with
director.
GTI.
Yeah, I was Googling GTI. Went to their website and I saw he's on their board of directors. I'm like, well, at least I know one person out of these folks that at least I have some connection to. And I think it's important that all of us out there, across the industry, these multi-state operators, many of us are in different states, but we all care about this industry's legitimacy, because for so long it was criminalized and demonized. And now that it's a legitimate industry, we're trying to get to the point of, for those of us on the activism side, where the industry players are respecting the activism. Like there's been over 50 years of really hard work to work to get cannabis off the Controlled Substances Act, to make sure that it gets in the hands of the sickest patients who need it. And the people who are now working in this industry, a thriving industry that's bringing in billions of dollars a year into our economy in this country, the workers are being exploited. They're not being protected, and they're not getting the same respect that other workers and other industries get. And that is a failure on the corporations, and that's a failure on the government.
It drives me nuts because I was one of those activists. I wasn't there for all 50 years, but like 25 now. So it's like, and I gave up like years of my life. Like I did a lot of stuff. Like I can't even, if I talk about all the stuff we did, it's bragging, you know what I mean? Like it's just, but it's the history. And it's like so many of us, we know who was there, who did all that heavy lifting, the activism locally, nationally, it's just like, now we're sitting here looking at like, wow, did we really invest properly? Is this the industry that we wanted to see? Like, no, like that's why I can't shut up. I can't sleep at night.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I was a part of this. And if we don't fix this, we need to fix this. And if it's, it drives me crazy because these MSO investors, they'll call us every name in the book for calling this shit out just because they're worried about their stocks. They want their stocks to go up. And they'll act like they're the biggest activist, and none of us are activists. And it's just like, no, you guys just care about your stocks. We care about this actual industry, the patients, the workers, the consumers, all of us that have fought for it for 50 years, even more than that. I think that the movement's even been longer than that. But yeah, I would say the modern movement, 50 years, we fought for this.
Well, people ask me all the time, Chris, what is normal going to do now that things are legalizing? And I tell people legalization in your state is the first step. It's not the end game. And I look at us as normalists. We need to revamp ourselves, not just as an activism, but also as the consumer protection lobby. Much people are looking for someone in this industry, in this sector, to step up and one, make sure that the standards are being held to account, making sure that the industry is doing right by the people, because we forget that in many cases the end users of the products that these MSOs are producing are sick people. And if you're producing subpar product, that's going to affect, and it's going to cost people their lives. And if the way you're growing this product, the way you're cultivating it, if you're not doing it in a manner that's respecting the people that's doing it, you're not making it with love. If you're putting people over profits over people every single time, then that's the type of products you're going to be putting out. If you can't protect your workers, how can you protect the patients that are buying your product? How can they feel comfortable? And the sad part is that we get calls and messages on social media all the time. Oh, there's microplastics in my stuff. There's these weird dead bugs in my stuff. There's mold, there's mildew. And it's like, wow, someone with cancer is ingesting a failed, dirty product, all because these companies aren't doing it right from the get-go. That's infuriating.
And I think it is to the listeners too, the community. You get some comments, and I'm going to read a couple of them. Facebook user writes, "This is so sad. The cannabis industry can do better. We don't want to be overregulated, but too many companies are not stepping up. I've had to let someone go because his asthma was aggravated by trimming. I didn't want to, but we didn't want anything bad to happen to him." I mean, that's the proper way to do it, I think. Hopefully you don't let him go, maybe move him to another department. But that's the thing that drives us crazy about this situation at Green Thumb, is that Julie wasn't hired to work in the pre-roll department. She was working in another department that was much safer, and they cut her job and moved her to the pre-rolls, which is the most dangerous job. And then she continued to have health issues, and they didn't do anything about it, which is really kind of disgusting, especially now they say that it wasn't work related, but she had COPD, and that's what we're going to blame it on. And we knew that. And that's why we moved her to pre-rolls. It doesn't really make sense. It's really a sad state of affairs. So I want to thank the Facebook commenter there. You got anything, Chris?
Mike, this is Leslie. I was just going to pop in and say that GTI has a responsibility if they kept that employee. I agree. You don't want to let somebody go because they have asthma or any other health condition, but it's your job as their employer to put them in a position that's safe. And so GTI needed to screen her, and all these companies need to be screening their employees before they ever hire them to work in these jobs. And I can tell you, I don't see a lot of people doing that. I've read probably 100 different cannabis companies' job descriptions for them, trying to clean them up. So we're working on SOPs and stuff, and they don't have that stuff until we make them put it in there. So it really, there's a lot of preventative stuff that should and could be happening. And that's where I feel like this GTI thing, like lots of people have COPD. Like there's a lot of people with health conditions in the US. Your chances of hiring and staffing a full facility without those is zero. So you got to take some responsibility up front and do something about it, right? It's not that hard to ask questions and put people in the right roles. But again, you got to care to do that. And we just don't see a lot of people caring about this stuff.
That's the problem. Lack of caring.
Yeah.
That lack of caring for anything but money and your next promotion, it seems like. A Facebook user commented and said, "So sorry for your loss, Laura." And this is a comment I'm not really loving, but it's a guy I went to high school with. He's on TV sometimes too. He's like a stock guy, a stock promoter. I don't know what he is. I actually think he's like a stock analyst, maybe a hedge fund guy. So he's a money guy. He's a smart guy. He writes, unions are for the inept. I think you have a point, because I think that the reason the cannabis industry, especially the companies like GTI, Green Thumb Industries, and Trulieve and Curaleaf, why they need unions is because they are inept. So you do have a point. I don't think it's an anti-union comment. I just think that companies, good companies don't necessarily need unions.
Yep.
But all these companies need unions, and there's a reason why, clearly. So I guess
I say it in my union organizing. I say, you know what? The companies and the institutions that have unions are the ones that deserve them.
Exactly. And like health and safety, like in protection, safety first, like even dangerous jobs too. I think a lot of jobs with high danger go union, just because it's so easy for the corporations to cut corners a lot of times. And if they just cut corners one time, that can be someone's life or death, or lose a leg. I used to be a beer distributor. We were Teamsters, and we got paid more than the guys next door who delivered Budweiser. We were the number 2 brand. They were number 1. We got paid more. Why? They weren't union. They delivered more beer and got paid, so like, I think for workers, unions can be a lot better. But the best thing about our position was it was somewhat dangerous. Delivering beer doesn't sound dangerous, but you're falling down holes. There's a lot of heavy equipment. There's a lot of, fork trucks. A lot of stuff can go wrong. People did get hurt. Safety was first. Even management, everything would shut down. Like, they would push you to work hard. Managers were not pushovers because of the union. But if there was anything, safety first, even the managers there. So I think the unions really have a big effect on safety, and having the workers have a say at the workplace. And the thing that the workers care most about is coming home from work. I mean, that's number one. That's what everyone cares about. So
yeah. Well, one of the leading unions in the cannabis sector comes from Workers United, which is an SEIU affiliate, and they originally got started out as garment workers. And one of the reasons is because of the unsafe working conditions in the early 20th century. People were working in places that were consistently burning down. The buildings were burned down with workers alive inside of it. And so if you trace the history of where the cannabis unions come from, it goes back a long ways of a history of workers who just, hey, this isn't right. People shouldn't die while they're on the job, especially jobs that don't put you in the line of fire of, someone's gun.
Yep.
It would be nice to see the unions do more than just for the people that are their members, though, right? I feel like I would like to hear the unions speak up about health and safety in this industry overall, and not just fight particular operators, because you'd have to be living under a rock to think this was a unique problem in one facility, right? And so if this is a systemic issue across the board, we need people like the unions that are there to protect people to have a voice loudly too, right? I mean, that's part of this is about making noise. As terrible as it is that we have to do that to get attention to this, if we don't, it's going to keep going nobody will care.
Yeah, I
You
think
know?
it's starting to happen. I mean,
I do
especially
too.
in Massachusetts, anyways, like the UFL-CIO and the major unions are now aware, and the Teamsters are involved now. Like I think for a while it was just UFCW,
Yeah.
which
Mhm.
they're great, but they're not like so experienced as the Teamsters. The Teamsters are like another level. So I think having multiple unions is like a really great thing. I
Got
think the
it.
problem is in states like Florida, where there are a lot of dispensaries, there's no union movement. Like it's if it's tough in Massachusetts, think about what Florida's like. So
Well,
I
yeah,
just,
I'm in Arizona. This
yeah,
is not a union state. We don't
yeah.
have
So,
unions.
I think that's the issue is certain states are really not pro labor.
In
Yeah.
Florida, the governor just signed a bill that doesn't allow unions to, essentially take their dues out of your paycheck anymore. So,
Yep.
so you got to physically write a union to check now for your dues.
Wow.
And then also they passed a law in Florida that if any public sector union membership falls below a certain threshold, that they're decertified.
Wow.
That they got to recertify essentially almost every single year. Public sector unions in Florida are now going to have to do membership drives just to keep their membership above certain thresholds or get decertified. And so what we're seeing is actually there are more workers on strike this year than can be remembered in modern history. The Teamsters are with their UPS negotiations are getting ready to go on strike. You see the Actors Union, the Writers Guild unions on strike. We've seen strikes across academia. We've seen strikes in the healthcare sector. It may be time, to Leslie's point, that the cannabis industry unions get on the same page and organize, for this public safety. And if striking is necessary, it's something you have to do. But in certain states, you don't even have those rights, the hodgepodge of all 50 states. And so that's what can make the cannabis sector even more dangerous, is how partisan politics and anti-union politics can play into this, because there are no vehicles in certain states for workers to really protect themselves, because those vehicles are constantly being chipped away at.
We got a comment from George David Perez. I think I know him. I think his name's Hectic. I think he's a rapper, actually. He said he had a slip and fall at a dispensary because they would spray Febreze in the air over polished concrete floors. He also said, I reported to the store manager and asked for an OSHA reporting form. They laughed at me. I would say go report it yourself. You can go report it right now on the OSHA website and get that
They
straightened
don't do
away.
anything. The state OSHAs don't respond. I probably know 40 different reports that have been filed that I've seen personally, and not one has gotten a response.
He did follow it up and he said, I did report the whole thing to OSHA and absolutely nothing happened. I know I agree with what Leslie said and what a lot of our guests and what George David Perez is saying too. But I got to say to people, like, you still got to
report.
You still got to report. And the reason why is because eventually when the record gets so long, something has to be done. It's kind of like, you just got to overwhelm them with the paperwork.
That's why we're launching CARE, Mike, because I figured if there's one database that's collecting this, regardless of what state you're in, regardless of it's worker related or product related or harassment or any of that, we can aggregate and publish that monthly, whether the states listen or not. And I think that in itself is a powerful statement to what needs to change,
Absolutely. I'm trying to decipher this comment. I don't even know what it means. So I love the comments. I don't know what it means. Here's one from Facebook. He says, I'd rather take out my ears with hot irons and listen to fascists that think they're Democrats. Was that for us? Was that for Chris? Maybe? I don't know. Do you guys make sense of that comment? I'm not sure.
I am neither a fascist and I'm a Democrat because, I damn sure ain't gonna vote Republican, and no party affiliates don't get to vote in primaries in the state that I'm in. So
there you go. I'm unenrolled. So I'm not even a Democrat or a Republican. I just, but I'm definitely voting Democrat, just because the fascists are on the other ticket. Lou Rinaldi writes, stop buying GTI products. So he says, stop buying Green Thumb Industry products. This is from Lou on YouTube. Look at Box Brown's infographic for all the brands they're connected to. Absolutely. I agree. I would not buy Green Thumb Industries or Trulieve or Curaleaf. I think everyone on the panel probably agrees with that. What do you all think?
Yeah, to Lou's point, they have probably 50, 60 different brands. They don't come out saying Curaleaf or GTI. So that box brown infographic that he's talking about is sort of a spider web of all the GTI brands across the country. I don't have it, or I'd be happy to share it with you. But yeah, it's hard to know. It's not as easy as just not going to a Curaleaf shop or something.
Well, that's something that I've noticed in the DC area since Maryland rolled out their adult use is, you think you might be going to a mom and pop dispensary or a place that seemed to have been a small business, and then you find out they've been bought out by Verano, that they're carrying
Yep.
all the same products, no matter, even though at one time they may have been a different had different management, different operators. And so I think that as the industry grows, or rather it consolidates, it's not actually growing, it's shrinking, in the same way that our media, it has a million different brands, but is really run by 6 different corporations. That seems to be the end goal of the cannabis industry. And you even see Philip Morris now buying up Israeli cannabis brands. And so how soon is it before we have big tobacco in the same players and the people who poison our food and our pharmaceuticals selling our weed to us?
Absolutely. Got more comments. Danny Carson, who was trying to get on earlier, says, thank you for speaking up. Laura, who called in earlier, Laura Raymond, who is the mother of Lorna McMurray, who passed away. She writes, I'm not going to shut up anymore. I'm going to go on the Today Show and Good Morning America. So she's fired up today, which I don't blame her. She was asking no more, no, not again, no, not someone else's child. And here it is, another woman, 60 years old, who passed away. And Laura also is reminding everyone her daughter was healthy until this. And I agree, like, this is such an important thing too, that Laura is bringing up, because when Lorna died, Trulieve tried to say it was pre-existing conditions. And later on, we found out that Lorna had been posting all that she was going through on her Facebook to her friends during the periods of times when she collapsed. And she was calling out the shitty workplace that Trulieve really was. And then after the fact, Trulieve is lying and say that she had breathing issues and she had pre-existing conditions. And the family says, no, that's not the case. That Lorna's pre-existing conditions did not start until she started working at Trulieve. So this is the type of companies we're dealing with. I mean, these companies will just basically kill their employee and then blame it on them and blame it on the unions. That's a funny thing. Like, they'll blame, how is it the union's fault that your worker died?
Well, unions are the workers, so they're blaming the workers for their own deaths.
And that just shows you, like, that both situations, all their comments are blame it on the worker and then blame it on the worker in another way. It's just the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So these are some of the comments. We've got people commenting tonight about their experiences. We're posting them up. If you want to call in, you can definitely call in 978-560-3155. I think we've gotten everyone from the StreamYard that wanted to get on tonight. I also wanted to talk about this Trulieve thing, because Trulieve announced, had like this big announcement last week that they had hired a new chief financial officer, a new CFO. And then immediately it came down that this CFO had already stepped down, and he had listed like personal reasons as the reason why he was leaving within 2 weeks of being hired. And this happened after the previous CFO had just abruptly left too. Like, he had just left out of the blue. There was no plan. There was no like, we're gonna move out in the next year. No, I'm gone like tomorrow. And apparently that CFO, when we looked him up where he's at now, like, he took a job at a company that is like 1/10 the size of Trulieve. So there's something really, it seems like, really strange about their CFO position right now. What do you think, Chris? Am I like out of my mind to think that there could be more to this story than what's been so far, proven as facts on it?
I would say, Tim Mullaney, who was the CFO who quit just after a couple weeks from there, is an Ivy League, educated man, went to Columbia and such. He was former CFO at Jack in the Box, so he's used to working for major corporations. I would say that he probably came right in, took one look at the books, as I would postulate, and said, you know what, my future is way more important than this, and walked away. He knows he's a blue chip type of executive. He could probably get a better job, because the fact is that they have grown to a point to where now they can't keep that growth sustainable. That's why they're shutting down Massachusetts operations. That's why they're betting the farm that they can get adult use in Florida, because they know that opening of the market is the only way they're going to get the cash infusion necessary to really keep their investors from taking them down. I mean, there are some folks who have invested in the company who I know for a fact have said, they're never going to get their investments back, that they've had to take settlements for penny on the dollars, and they don't want those things to be known public, but they had to sign NDAs and all kind of craziness. So the fact is that there's a corporation right now that is basically bullshitting, for lack of a better word, the entire industry, and it's all a pyramid scheme. It's a fugazi, and so I think that the CFO, as the professional that he was, probably stepped right into that, looked at those books and said, no way I'm putting my name on this, and walked away.
Yeah, I think so too. Something's going on. Very strange. We're the Young Jerks. I want to thank everyone who's been listening tonight and just checking out what we're doing. We had Lorna's mom call in earlier, which was it's a tough call to take. It's always tough to.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Our prayers and condolences, they don't amount for nothing when you lose a child, but we can take action to try and make sure that more people don't fall the way she did.
And very interesting, like we were saying, like I think I think we're on the right track on this. I think there is something very strange in the books of Trulieve, where this guy Tim Mullaney would just take a job and then 2 weeks later, no, I've got personal issues, something going on. If anyone wants to call in, we will take a call. If you call in quickly and got something quick to say, 978-560-3155. If you've been noticing, always when I do my show, usually my dog ends up in here with me, and he's in here tonight, and he's been pretty good, but there's been a few moments when he's been trying to get on my lap, and right now he's definitely like focused because he can hear his mama, like, I think she's leaving right now. So he's a little worked up. So I always want to take a break for him and just let him out. And I think that's about the time. So if you want to call in, do so quickly. I'm sure Chris has other things he's got to do tonight too. I want to thank you for showing up tonight. Tell us a little bit more about you, who you are, again, for people who are just tuning in. 978-560-3155 is our phone number. Well, tell us who you are, Chris, again. You're with Normal in Florida, Suncoast Normal.
Yeah, so I serve as our executive director for the Suncoast chapter Normal. I also serve on Normal's national board of directors as the newest member of the board of directors, and I'm happy to join my fellow colleague from Florida, Nikki Freed, who was our former commissioner of agriculture there, first female commissioner of agriculture. And, what I see, again, as our future at Normal is that we really, as an organization, we've been activists working on the legislative side for years, working to reform marijuana laws at every level of government. As these, different states and territories in the U.S. Have adult use markets and medical markets, I think it's important that we, as an organization, refocus the industry on the people that it serves, on the consumers, in particular, sick patients in many cases. So one of the things that I have issue with is when, like what happened in Washington State, where a medical system is essentially chucked for an adult use system. And the fact is that, to me, all cannabis use is medical. But for many people, they don't like the way like a system like Florida is set up, where it's vertically integrated, where there's a limited number of licenses, where it feels like it's a cartel structure, a corrupt one that has Trulieve all the way at the top, that has GTI, that has, Parallel, that has Verano, these major multi-state operators. Out of the 22 licensed medical operators in Florida, only one is a non-multi-state operator. So, when you think about it, the Florida is the testing ground for essentially this oligarchic takeover of the industry, and it seems to be flourishing. And I worry very much for the safety of patients and for the safety of workers and for the quality of products that people are ingesting. I got into this fight because in 2010, my dad was diagnosed with a terminal form of dementia. And it was only because of the amazing care that my mother, who's a nurse, who had just beat breast cancer, was working to protect him. The doctors gave him 6 months. He lived all the way up until January of 2017. But during that time, I noticed that, doing the research, looking to see what I could do to try and save my dad, that the government had a patent on utilizing medical cannabis and cannabinoids to treat dementia and to treat strokes, the exact things that he was suffering from. And I was arrested taking his medicine home to him one night. And so that would change my whole life. I went from being, someone who's in their master's program at school, just graduated with I just graduated with my master's degree. I was doing postgraduate work, teaching at a small, school, and my whole life gets upended like this. And I was charged with felony charges. I got my car civil forfeited. I had to go to rehab to get my record expunged. I got to experience the corruption of the system firsthand. And I also understood that I had a level of privilege because I have the complexion for the protection and I had a clean record. But there are a lot of other people who don't get those same opportunities to have their record wiped out, to be able to do it. And I also saw how the rehab industrial complex is so integrated with our criminal justice system that it is set up almost for people to fail in many cases.
Yeah, it's a pipeline.
Especially when you have these issues, of trying to mitigate and utilize cannabis to help with actual drug addiction. People who are addicted to opioids are trying to utilize cannabis, and then God forbid, you end up getting popped for some reason. Now you're in drug treatment and you have to go totally sober. And that causes delirium, tremors. It causes all kind of other issues. And I saw it. I got let off for good behavior, and they hated the fact that they had to debate me in group therapy sessions. They're like, get Kano out of this program, graduate from early. I'm not just gonna let some agent of averages tell me that I have cannabis use disorder, cannabis abuse disorder. I'm like, I never abuse my weed. I treat it with absolute respect. I find the DSMV to be absolutely cuckoo for that. I don't think I can respect the field of psychology until they remove cannabis use disorder out of the DSMV as a mental illness.
That's crazy that they consider that, in my opinion. Let me ask you about Florida more, because right now there's the Florida Adult Use Cannabis Initiative.
Yep, Smart and Safe Florida, entirely bankrolled by Trulieve.
Yeah, they're spending a lot of money on this. It's funny, the two things that they're spending a lot of money on, Trulieve in Florida, the initiative, and Ron DeSantis and the Republicans. I've noticed they've spent a lot of money giving to this Republican Senate campaigns, the Republican, like anything Republican, they're throwing money at, and they throw a lot of money at Ron DeSantis. What do you think? Like, is this going to, number one, even get on the ballot? Because it's being challenged by the Attorney General of Florida. It seems like, I'm guessing that's probably not going to stick, but who knows? And if it does get on the ballot, like, will it actually win? Like, is this a big gamble for Trulieve?
Yes, Trulieve is going all in. They're betting the house. And the final test is the DeSantis administration. When Amendment 2, which is the medical marijuana amendment sponsored by United for Care, went before the Florida Supreme Court in 2014 on its first run for Supreme Court review, it was a 4-3 split that allowed it on the ballot. There are 3 liberal justices who have since retired, and DeSantis has packed the court with conservative justices. Will we get that same level? Well, here's the thing. Trulieve knew that, so they have hired a campaign run entirely by Republicans. Their campaign is being run by a consulting firm that ran Ted Cruz's presidential campaign. Their face of their campaign, the Bellamy brothers, are some of the largest donors to Ron DeSantis. But the reason that I firmly feel Ron DeSantis has directed Ashley Moody to challenge this is because if this is on the ballot, it will increase voter turnout, and it will flip Florida from being a red state back to a purple or possibly even blue state. And that is the biggest issue. If DeSantis happens to be the Republican nominee for president. He doesn't want to get embarrassed by losing his own state because he allowed cannabis to be on the ballot, and then there's a 10% boost in voter turnout, and he ends up losing.
Wow, I didn't even think of that.
Every state where cannabis is on the ballot, there is always a
Oh, I
significant
know
boost
that.
in voter
Yeah.
turnout. But
And
this is a,
so no doubt about it.
Yeah.
It's a vote. It brings people out. Like, because
Yeah.
I mean, I've lived through Massachusetts 2008, 2012, 2016. We did medical, decrim, decrim, then medical, and then legal. We did them all. And like it brings out so many new voters. Like so many of my friends were like, I've never voted before. I'm voting today. Like so many people. So I just it's funny because I know that, but I didn't think like DeSantis has an incentive not to let this be on the ballot because it will hurt his chances for maybe even reelection. Like if he doesn't win, because like if he doesn't,
he's already been reelected. He's a lame duck governor.
is it for 4 years though? Like how?
Yeah,
when's
yeah.
his
He was
next election?
elected. He was elected for 4 years. Just recently. Last
So it
year.
only affected if he was running for president, really. But
Well,
still,
they even changed the law this year in Florida to allow him to run for president. Because we have resign to run laws, so if he really wanted to run for president as governor, he should have resigned. But he pushed bills through the Florida GOP, which has a super majority in Florida and controls it, and they can pretty much do what they want right now. And so the one thing he can't allow is for cannabis to be more popular than him. And if you go back 2014, 2016, cannabis got more votes than the governor of Florida, and cannabis got more votes than the president of the United States in Florida both those years.
yeah, that's what I love too. Like when we won decrim, we had all these politicians who were against us in medical too and legal. Every time we'd win an initiative, they'd be like us. We had this state senator at the time. He became a U.S. senator actually later, Scott Brown, who immediately after we decrimmed, he wanted to recrim. So I did a protest, at his fundraiser, and we filmed all the Lamborghinis pulling up to give him money. And a lot of media showed up, like local print media, the radio stations, and even TV media. And he was like, he had his little pickup truck that he always campaigned in, but he was like ducking them and hiding from them. And it was so easy to kind of just stomp on it because it was just like, dude, there's no politician, and including yourself, who got more votes than cannabis. Like it's so easy to say that to them, and it just shuts them up. And the media is like, what? The media just is like, they're shocked and they're like, oh my God, that's a fact. Like they look it up and they're like, yeah. Like that just changed the reality when we kept repeating that in Massachusetts. Like after every win, it's like, you can't mess with us. We got more votes than you did for governor. Like you're the governor. We got more votes than you.
Yes.
So like, what are you talking about? If you're going to discount this, then we discount your governorship. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's also a concern too, because Ron DeSantis has been governor in Florida since he got elected in 2018, and a major concern is where's been the progress in the industry. The only thing he's done for progress is his first 3 months in office. He signed an executive order to allow for smokable flower, and that was only because he was being pressured by John Morgan, who's a major donor, and Matt Gaetz, who's a former colleague of his in Congress. Other than that, he hasn't done anything to help us with workers' rights, as far as people are still being fired from their jobs even though they're legit medical patients in Florida. And we as Suncoast Normal have for the past 4 years have pushed a bill, and we've even watered it down to where it only applies to public sector employees, so we don't mandate anything to the private sector. And still, we've spoken to staff. They're stone-faced about it. They won't even give it a committee hearing in the legislature. There's other issues like medical patients still being kicked off the organ transplant list because they're utilizing cannabis to try to live a healthy life. You shouldn't be precluded from a life-saving procedure like that for utilizing medical cannabis. Other states have addressed that. Your parental rights. You can still have your medical marijuana status used against you in custody hearings in Florida. All these things, the expansion of qualifying conditions, making sure more people with chronic debilitating illnesses have access to it. The DeSantis administration rules the Florida Republican Party with an iron fist and has done nothing to lift a single finger to help sick patients in Florida.
That's crazy. Let me ask you another question about Florida, because you mentioned earlier that there was only one company that wasn't a MSO operating in Florida. What is it?
No,
Vatican?
Yeah, Vatican.
Do you expect any relief there? Like, do you expect that they're going to open it up anymore, or is this just going to
So there are
continue to be that way?
There are 22 licenses on the line in Florida currently that are about to be handed out. There are 74 applicants. Most recently in Florida, a law was signed that allowed for Black farmers who had applied for a license, if they could remedy any deficiencies, they'd be able to get a license. One of the things that Florida's initial medical marijuana statutes, which were passed by the legislature in 2014 for CBD only, which created the industry because they were trying to preempt, the medical marijuana amendment, which was coming down the pipeline, allowed for only 5 licenses for the entire state. To get that license, you had to have a nursery license for 30 contiguous years in the state of Florida. What happens is that if you go back to Florida history, there were licenses denied to Black farmers, in the 70s and the 80s, all the way up to the 90s, till the USDA actually settled it. And so you have an entire class of Black farmers who this applied to. And it just so happens that the Black farmers, the finally for years, they said, this is wrong, we're going to sue. Even those 22 licenses I talked about, there were initially 5. All the other ones were because they sued in one way or the other. They were granted by the courts. So the DeSantis administration hasn't dished out any new licenses. And the amendment we passed as voters said every 100,000 patients that register, you need to issue out more licenses. And so they've been sitting on their hands for years. Finally, these court cases have been resolved. In many ways, people were suing over it. And now we're looking at, who knows? It could get bogged down again. There's only 22 licenses. There's 74 applicants. We finally got 2 Black farmers just last month that were issued licenses. So we'll see, how this industry shapes up. But I can tell you again that Florida has been the breeding ground for what an oligarchic, dominating, large corporate interest cannabis industry looks like. And I would not be surprised if they try to, it goes from pilot program to nationwide. And it concerns me in a lot of ways because some of these multi-state operators do not like any type of competition at all. And one of the things that have been most disruptive to the cannabis industry, especially in Florida, is the Farm Bill of 2018 allowed for hemp products with below 0.3% THC by dry weight to be sold. And we have a burgeoning hemp industry in Florida. There are over 10,000 licensed businesses in the state that are now selling some type of hemp products. These major multi-state operators are writing these big donations to DeSantis and other legislators. And we just had a legislative fight in the Florida legislature this year because they tried to essentially, ban these hemp products in a lot of ways, restrict them severely, put caps on THC content, put caps on how many milligrams of THC can be there, all these crazy things until the hemp industry got, together and riled up and try to fight that off. But while everybody was busy fighting that, it took up all the air in the room. Nothing happened in regards to worker rights, patients' rights, parental rights, expansion of qualifying conditions, and all these other issues that are vitally important. We've been fighting for years. The same thing happened a couple years back when the DeSantis administration allowed the GOP to push forward with THC caps on the existing medical system. So every year they try to put out some type of bad bill. It takes all the oxygen in the room out, and nothing gets done when it comes to actually patient-centric reforms. And then you have multi-state operators like Trulieve who are going after their competitors in the hemp industry. Sad to say, the state of Maryland is a testament to that, because as of July 1st, everyone selling hemp products pretty much had to shut down. You cannot sell novel cannabinoids in Maryland unless you're a licensed retail dispensary now. So, all the Delta 8 vape pens, all that is only can be sold by these big multi-state operators that have the local licenses. So, and you're going to continue to see that in these states. And Trulieve denied carte blanche. They had nothing to do with it in Florida. And maybe they didn't. Maybe I might take Kim Rivers' word for it. Okay.
I don't.
Exactly.
With what I know, too. I know that they were involved in that.
Exactly. But what I can say is I got a letter from their letterhead saying to the state of Arizona and the state of Virginia that, essentially these hemp products need to be outlawed. They're so bad. You should let us do it because we're licensed. You trust us. We're your friends. And it's just disgusting to see the amount of corruption in the industry, even knowing that the CEO of Trulieve's husband has gone to jail for bribing public officials because of that corruption. It is just out there for the world to see. And it seems like the complacency of the American consumer and the American worker has allowed this to thrive. And we as American voters, we got to step our game up. We're not paying attention. As much as we talk about how much turnout turns out because of cannabis, that is just sad that it takes, your pot to be on the ballot for you to get your ass up off and vote.
Right.
There are so many important issues.
Exactly.
From education to civil rights to healthcare,
democracy itself.
Yeah, democracy itself, and we're so close to losing it.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this too, because you've hit so many good topics tonight. I'm actually confused about where I want to go now, but we are starting to run out of time. But Chris, like where do you see like even Florida going? Do you think that it will get better, or do you like to think it's gonna be just more MSO crap? Like if you really and the other question I think too is like the average consumer, the person that's going to these medical dispensaries, do they really know about Trulieve? Do you think that they know that her husband's in federal prison, or do most people they're not aware? They just don't read the newspaper.
Yeah, the one is not aware, and two, I was up in a line the other day when I was in Maryland. People, especially baby boomers, they're just happy that they could buy legal weed and not get harassed. They could care less about the necessarily even the quality of it in many ways. They're not necessarily boutique consumers. For many of the consumers in the medical market, they're first time smokers, or at least they haven't smoked in 30, 40 years. They're now retired. They feel as though, oh, I can do it. One of the biggest areas that has the highest concentration of medical patients is the villages in Florida, So what I'm seeing in Florida is will things get better? I'll tell you this. If Trulieve collapsed tomorrow, would that make Florida any better? The answer is no. Some big corporation that has the ability to buy up their assets, like Curaleaf, who's a rival competitor. That's all that would happen. They'd get all their assets would get bought. No different than what Trulieve has done to smaller places like Harvest and such. They'll buy up their assets. They'll spit out that licensed piece of paper. They'll sell it off for millions of dollars. They'll liquidate what they can. And that's sad, but that's just the nature of American capitalism at the highest levels. It is a cutthroat, dog-eat-dog world. The only people who lose in the end are going to be the investors who got shook, because I guarantee the CEO is going to get a golden parachute, and the patients. Those are the two people who are going to lose the most. Do I feel bad for the rich people? No, but I feel bad for the guy who, has worked his ass off, took his nest egg in his retirement fund and said, you know what, I can put it into this company and make me some money. And then the company doesn't do right by him, and he only gets pennies on the dollar for his investment. Those are the investors that it breaks my heart to see get screwed over,
Oh, definitely. I feel bad for him too. But I think that they should not blame us activists. They should blame themselves and the business, because
that's not on
between
us.
them. They made they didn't make, and I'm an investor. I invest a lot. I spread it around.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish I invested more, because a lot of the companies pop off lately. But you're taking a risk, and if you're not looking at the numbers closely, then you're making some mistakes, and especially in the cannabis industry. I think that anyone who is investing in these big cannabis companies, expect that it could go to zero. Don't even expect that it could. Expect that it will. Like that, it's a definite. Like these companies, some of them, like Trulieve, I would not doubt if GTI. You said Curaleaf. I think GTI will be the one that buys Trulieve.
Sure.
And I think that may actually happen. Like that's my. It could be Curaleaf. We don't know. We have no idea. But you brought that up. I would not doubt if Trulieve actually goes out of business and gets bought. Like I think that doesn't occur to a lot of people, that could be up for grabs. But I think that like in the next year or two, anything is possible in this industry. And if you're an investor and you're not aware of that, then you better get really aware, because there's a lot of risk at play here. Right, Chris? Do you agree with me?
Yeah, I think also I want to give a public service announcement to cannabis consumers, because one of the things that I've noticed is this desire to capitalize on celebrity level branding in the cannabis industry. And so, to an uneducated consumer, you're looking and buying a brand name, but you might not be getting the same quality of product that you expect from that brand name, because two reasons. One, the nature of the industry being fragmented in like a federalist system. Wiz Khalifa's Kush from California may not be the same Wiz Khalifa Kush in Florida, even though it has the same brand. The other thing is just the nature of how brands in America Even the Supreme Court ruled they're not obligated to really tell you the truth on hardly anything. If they slap it on a box, it's up to you to believe it. The only thing that really matters these days is it GMO or is it organic? But they can put all natural on it. All natural just is bullshit. But you buy it as a consumer, and so I think marketing, especially for baby boomers. My mom is 65. I noticed her shopping for makeup the other day. If you just put a few buzzwords on something, she'll buy it. She'll spend it, And that's the issue that we're going to have moving forward with a lot of celebrity branding in this industry is, oh, I like that celebrity. I like this about him. I'm going to buy this product. It's not Mike Tyson selling you his stuff. It's Verano selling these things. It's not Wiz Khalifa selling you bud. It's Trulieve and cookies selling you bud.
Yeah.
And
it just drives me crazy. I don't get it because I look at it like I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. I just want to smell it, taste it, and look at it. Like that's what matters to me. And
and how's it make me feel?
Who grew it?
Yeah.
Did Wiz grow this? No, Wiz didn't grow this. Who grew it? Like that's all I care about. It's like 4 or 5 things.
Yeah.
Like, taste, smell, look, texture. Who grew it? Like that's like marketing. I just don't get it with cannabis. I think it's crazy.
Show me the test results. I want to know where are the heavy metals. What pesticides did you spray on it? How do you grow it? Those are the things that are important as a patient, as a sick person. You want to know what you're putting in your body. I could give a shit what celebrity, slap their logo on the front of it.
It's crazy. Well, I want to thank you so much, Chris. Anything else you want to drop for us? You've dropped a lot of information. Like how can people get in contact with you and any closing thoughts tonight?
Absolutely. Well, first off, I encourage folks to go to our social media at Suncoast Normal across the different platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, etc. Every Sunday, we actually have a podcast in the mornings called The Rotation, where we interview various guests who are political luminaries, major medical researchers, even celebrity guests like Tommy Chong have been on the show. So I encourage folks to go ahead and visit our YouTube channel, see our past episodes, and visit our website, suncoastnormal.org, where you can learn more about the education that we're trying to spread to folks. And I really do appreciate you, Mike, raising these very important topics, and raising it to the top that workers are not being treated right in this industry, and that there are preventable deaths that due to industry corruption need not happen if we have better government oversight and we have the industry players doing right by the people that work for them and the patients that they serve. Again, I view the future of NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, as a consumer protection lobby. So I would encourage folks to reach out, get involved in their local NORML chapter. Go to norml.org, find out where you can find a NORML chapter near you, and figure out a way that you can become an activist, that you can donate your time, treasure, and talent, because just because you have adult use, just because we have medical, just because it's decriminalized in certain areas, doesn't mean that you're still fully protected. There are still people still being fired from their jobs. There are still people still being discriminated against in medical treatments. There's still people losing their kids, and they're doing everything legally. There's even the issue in the courts being decided right now whether or not your Second Amendment rights are valid because you're a cannabis user. So our very freedoms and civil rights are still at stake. NORML has always been a civil rights organization at its core, and we're going to move through the next 50 years as a civil rights organization and consumer protection lobby. And we ask folks to just continue to get involved and pay attention.
Thank you. It's at South Coast NORML. You can reach them on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those places.
All those places. YouTube. Yep. Just at Suncoast NORML.
And Chris, I want to thank you so much, Chris Cano, and all of our guests tonight, Leslie and Danny calling in, and also the GTI worker. It was a phenomenal show tonight. I want to thank everyone who was part of it. We're the Young Jerks. If you haven't, make sure you click, follow us, like, subscribe, all that. Wherever you're watching, whether it's YouTube, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitch, Twitter. Where else are we? We're on Facebook, of course, LinkedIn. We get a lot of comments, and we're starting to do Rumble too, the right wing Rumble. But follow us. Make sure you subscribe to us. Share it with your friends. I want to thank all of our guests tonight, all of our callers. I want to thank the GTI worker especially. She was very brave to share her story, and I want to thank Laura for calling in too, Lorna's mom. Thank you so much for everyone for supporting the show. We're the Young Jerks. If you want to help us some more, Please share this with your friends. And again, if you want to take it up another notch, you can always subscribe to us on our anchor.fm/the Young Jerks, or Spotify. You can find us there on Spotify or even Apple iTunes. There's a way, if you scroll down, you can see a way that you can donate some money to us each month. It does cost us to do the show. There's computer costs, StreamYard costs. There are costs, insurance costs that we do cover every month. And it is very beneficial when people do kick in some money to help us. I would love to purchase a second computer right now and another monitor. But, I save and pay for it eventually myself if money doesn't come in. But if money does come in, it makes it a lot quicker and a lot nicer. So please, if you can, kick in. If you have any money, definitely do consider supporting us as well. midnightmass.substack.com is another way. We also have a Patreon. Just look for the Young Jerks. It will pop right up. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Mike Crawford. This is the Young Jerks. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next time.